All right, so let me play this short clip, and then we'll talk about it.
Thought I was going to get married, and getting in, divorce was an option, and I stated it very.
All right, so let's talk about this. Here's the question that I have for you: should divorce ever be an option for married couples? Let's participate. Let's participate. Let me get your answers in the chat. Should divorce ever be an option for married couples? There's no right and wrong answer. I just want to know how you feel. Should divorce ever be an option for married couples? What are your thoughts around that? It's okay to say it depends. It's okay to say here's why. Yes, no, here's why. That's fine. I would love to hear your take on this. Should divorce ever be an option for married couple is the question.
Very clear my life. As I said, I never thought I was going to get married.
So he never thought he was going to get married.
And getting in, divorce was an option.
Getting in, divorce was an option. Okay. For me personally, it was too. It's not like we're walking around and bragging. It's gonna be. It's like, hey, if it's wrong, I'm okay with acknowledging that it is, and it's okay for people to go their separate ways. Right? That was me personally. I want to know your thoughts about that. Come into the chat right now. What are your thoughts around this? Should divorce for married couple ever be an option? If your consideration for this is driven by religion, let me know as well. I want to know. Let's see. Isabel, welcome. How far? How you day? How you day? Modele says yes. It should be an option, right? D Love says absolutely. Oh God. Precious, welcome, Precious. Precious says yes. Oh God. Hey.
Funke.
Gorek says yes. It should be on the table or side. Hey. Ayé mi.
Hey! Ayé mi tèmi bá mi.
Let's see. T Love says yes. In case of an emergency, there's always emergency exit. Obìnrin. Hey.
Obìnrin.
Let's see. Pretty Lady has one point of contention here. If marriage is kerewa less, you know I'm on the same page with you on that one. Listen, 3 months is the line, okay? After 3 months, if it's kerewa less, if there's no sex, as far as I'm concerned, the marriage doesn't exist unless it's medical in nature, okay? When you say divorce is not an option, do work, be intentional, but don't say divorce is not an option and you are just there. Okay? All right? Gomez say based on what? That's the question, right? It should be an option. Is there some scenario for you where I'm okay with it? Like you're just okay with it, right? Whatever that means to you, should it ever be an option? Indy Tony says it depends the situation of the marriage. Instead of both people to buy each other, divorce is the best option. 100%. I can't argue with that. I don't know why anybody would want to argue on adultery. I'll also want to say abuse too, because that could be life-threatening. All right. So how many of you are fans of Pastor and Pastor Mrs. Kingsley and Mildred Okonkwo? How many of you are fans of this fantastic couple out there that's helping couples make the best out of their marriage? How many of you?
And I stated it very clearly because I felt if you don't understand that.
He said he stated it very clearly. I stated it very clearly too. Let me ask you a question. Is there a downside? Just think about it. Can you think of a downside to stating this very clearly earlier on in a marriage? Could you think of a downside, especially in this scenario? Watch, listen.
Divorce is a possibility. If you bury your head in the sand and you don't understand divorce is a possibility, then you won't do what it takes or what's required to avoid it.
That's the upside. I agree with that. Okay? That's one of the upside to say, hey, divorce is an option, right? You know is an option. So if divorce is clearly not what people go into marriage to do, so if you know it's an option, I would hope that you're doing everything in your power to avoid it, right? Is that same thing for everyone? Let's think about it deeply, right? Is that true for everyone, right? For me and for DME, when I say divorce is an option, I'm thinking like, yeah, like if that's what it comes down to. But of course, I'm aware that this is an option. It's possible. That's not what I want. I'm going to work at it. Are there people out there that when they say divorce is an option, what it means to them is that they're not willing to work on nothing. They have low tolerance and they're willing to run for the hills at any sight of anything they consider. What was the excuse we just gave just now? Not excuse, but good reasons, right? Abuse, adultery, or a situation where you feel like your life is at stake, right? Things to think about. Let's think about these things, right? Let's see.
From happening. My wife, you wouldn't do what it takes or what's required to avoid it from happening. My wife said, we die here.
The wife said, we die here. Okay. Funny enough, my wife didn't state it exactly like that, right? But she was that person. The last thing she was thinking about is divorce when we're getting married, right? So if that's the last thing she was thinking about, and I was clearly stating it that this is an option. Normally, when do I normally state this? I'm not stating this when everything is rosy and bubbly. No. Guess what? I'm usually stating it. If we have small argument. Okay? We have small argument. After we argue, if I feel like the argument in my throat like this, not every time, I think one or twice I said that, right? But is there a downside to that? We're having an argument, right? I got frustrated with the argument, and somehow it flew out of my mouth that, hey, if it's not working, this is always an option for me. However way I said it, I don't remember exactly, but it was stated. Let me see what your thoughts are at this point. Is there a downside to that? That's the question. Is there a downside to explicitly stating like it's an option? Because again, we repeat a lot of talking points every chance we get, but we're not exactly paying attention to how it can. We're not paying attention to the downside. Everything in life is double-edged sword. There's disadvantages, disadvantages, right? So as much as we would like to say it's always a good thing, it's not always a good thing. So let's identify what the downsides of that could be, right? I have heard about them, but don't follow them. Okay. Precious say watch somebody Okonkos, right? Yes. Bumi says we die here. That's how the wife felt. And I have a feeling like a lot of women, when they're going into marriage with somebody they're in love with, that's the last thing on their mind, right? What could be the downside to moving around and say it's an option, it's an option, it's an option? Could that expose you to low tolerance level in a marriage? Right? Is that possible? Gomez says no one agrees and goes into marriage to divorce. Yes. People divorce for several reasons, and some reasons are not negotiable for a reinstatement of that marriage. Right. So now with that being said, is it 100%, 1000% safe to go into a marriage with the mindset that divorce is an option, or there could be a downside to that? D-Love said there's a disadvantage because it may come this give up spirit. Yes. That's what we're trying to shed some light on. I think ultimately, listen, it's an option for the reasons that, hey, if it's an option, that's not what I want. I'm going to work hard to make sure we never have to exercise that option. See, I think that the best position for negotiations, I hate to use the word negotiation in a marriage, right? But it's true. There's a back and forth all the time, right? It's an interaction, right? And the best position is to be willing to walk away and mean it. If you're not, if the other person can sense that you do have options you can exercise, they might just keep taking you for granted. That's just how life works. Not necessarily because they want to. It's because there's a human mind in their brain. There's a human brain on their head, and if they already know that, that you're not going anywhere, and they have bad habits like the rest of us, and they're indulging in it, they will keep indulging it. There's no real reason to change if there's a need for change, if they're being rewarded for the present state of things. So it's not as simple as any talking point as always, right? It could be as simple as actively listening. What exactly are we dealing with, right? Let's keep going. T Love says, let's see. D Love 3000. Shout out to D Love 3000, our sponsor here. There's a disadvantage because, okay, we already talked about that. T Love says that one is fight. Saying things in anger most likely bring regrets. Exactly. But again, the question I asked, like, if you're just walking around and you're kissy, lovey, and you're in the house and you're in love, right? Typically, you don't say these things. We try to listen. Our cap is just too much. That's the truth, okay? When it comes to this conversation,
Stop the cap.
the cap too much, okay? There's nobody in love. The butterflies are everywhere. You are kissy feeling each other. Oh, babe, let's have the conversation right now. That's cap. You're not. You're simply enjoying it when it's happening. When you typically want to do some of these textbook things is when someone is upset. Can we be honest about that? Okay? For the most part. I said typically. Not 100%. But for the most part. That's when you want to have tough conversations. There are issues. And issues. Something has happened. Right? So, and the problem is that you don't know what extent your partner is going to take it to. You don't know what their triggers are until it happens. Right? When they're triggered and it happens, everyone is upset. We don't know what yours is too. That's typically when these things happen. That's when somebody will talk about divorce. There's nobody explicitly stating, hey, by the way, we're going to, like, we can, I can divorce anytime, even though you're trying to kiss all over me right now.
Maybe juju be that.
That came up because some thoughts were crossing your mind, and they're usually not positive. Okay? And the main thing that I talk about here is awareness. Okay? Understanding that this is emotionally driven relationships. This is romantic relationships. In reality, it's everything I say here is going to be easier said than done. Okay? T-Law 7, in retrospect, I don't think I'll go in with the mindset of divorce though. Yeah, because if you're going in with that, it's almost like there's fear. Right? I think fear can be a good motivator. I think it can be a completely terrible motivator, especially when it comes to romantic relationships. You attract what you fear the most in weird ways. Even if it's at least in your mind, that negative thought will occupy your mind and you will steal from yourself when it comes to the experience. You will hurt yourself, basically. All right? All right, so it's very important. So should divorce ever be an option for married couples? Let me play this video. Let me finish playing this, then I got to play a video. Shout out to Tokemakiwa and shout out to Pastor Kingsley Okonkwo because I'm reacting within fair use guidelines to their content.
Our own was we die here. Like, divorce is not an option. Guess who thinks divorce is not an option now?
You.
Me.
And she
Guess
thinks
who's like, man, dude, whatever, man, I'm ready. And this is
So that's very typical. When women have a certain type of experience, that's when they suddenly realize that, hey, it's an option. When men continue to get more invested, number one, a typical man is continuing to normalize everything that's going on, is regulating and say, this is my life, even including Kiri Wallace. He's normalizing it. He might go and take care of himself outside, whatever he has to do, right? He's basically just self-regulating and say, hey, it is what it is. We die. Yeah, he starts to become more and more of that. He becomes more, not content, but he is, what's the word I'm looking for? He settles into, this is reality. We're just gonna have to manage that, right? Now, women discover more, typically. Discover more of the reality. They discover more of their capabilities as far as how wild the emotions can go, right? And it often gets to a point where you're just looking for exit signs. Even though, of course, you were so in love in the beginning, that's the last thing on your mind, right? And that flip is real. And that same exact flip happened to me. 8 years into our marriage, she said this, like marriage, all she said is marriage is not do or die. And I was triggered. I'm like, why would you say that? Even though it's true, right? Like, why would you say that? We were on a show, we were recording a live show like this. This was years back on our old platform that we lost, old channel that we lost, right? And I was triggered. I'm like, to me, it was like somebody threw a dagger for everything I've been building. Like it was kind of weird to me. I don't know why a person in a lifetime relationship with me will be nursing well, she had tons of resentments that we went with, issues that we never addressed at that time, right? Very, very important to pay attention. So this same exact flip happened to me. I'm gonna keep playing.
Every year for the first maybe 6-7 years, I promise you, we had a near divorce type scenario where she's like, I'm done, and I'm going, yeah, sure, I'm done too, but we always found our way back. And I think one of the things that we were able to do was, what that worked for us was that we were always able to have a project or something that we're working towards together. So having a common vision sort of helped.
That's another thing that worked for us. All right. Having a project together. The first thing that was recommended to us was to have a project together after the crisis that we had. And that's essentially what you have today as Lola and Ola, starting with the book, Get My Marriage Back. Okay? Having a project together. Listen, our words are very, very powerful, is the key thing here. Let me play this video for you, and then we'll take it from there. Let me play, hold on 1 second.
I love Thomas's English muffins. They really help me make the most of my morning. Do you hear them?
Divorce is not the fine.
So basically, this video, go check out their videos. They're very good, by the way, especially Pastor Kingsley. Very, very good. 7 agreements. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. All right. So, and they had the 7 agreements that they had before marriage. Okay. We had this conversation yesterday. I have like layers of problems with people having certain types of agreements before marriage. particularly from a standpoint of majority of them are unrealistic because marriage will test you. All right, everything you agreed to will be tested, and sometimes they become unrealistic expectations. And one of the two major destroyers, in my opinion, okay, everything that you look at and all the stats out there is traced back to those two things. Okay, unrealistic expectations and pride. Okay, unrealistic expectations and pride, 3 and 4. Okay, these are your 4 points focus, right? This 3 and 4 is basically what you need to play defense at all the time. It's a game. You have to play defense with these two things all the time. So whatever event is going on in your life between you and your spouse or your relationship partner, your romantic partner, I should say, you're always playing defense against expectations and pride. Okay, with expectations, you give your partner the freedom to express their expectations. With your expectations, you manage them. With pride goes before every type of fall. Pride is 100% destructive. I'm talking about the egotistical type of pride. And no, it's not the type that you will say, me, everybody tell me that I'm a very humble person. That's not that one. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the type of pride where you say, the way I was raised, we were raised in my family that we value marriage. We will never do such thing. It's coming from a blind spot. You don't realize it. It's the other person that will feel the heat of this when it's happening. It's not the one that everybody thinks you're prideful. No, not that one. That one is easy to detect. At least she kind of knew that, or he knew that before they married you, right? That's why, again, all of this stuff, you can have this conversation, but you must have those conversations with the expectations that you have to keep having those conversations until you buy. At least until having a healthy relationship becomes second nature to you. Okay? But let me play what Pastor Kingsley and Mildred had to say about this. So the seventh agreement they had is, let me go ahead and play.
Now one. Can you guess?
No.
The final one and the most important one. Divorce is not an option.
Yeah.
We said that so much to each other before we got married.
Yeah.
So it won't be fair to talk about this unless we hear their context. Let's hear some context, right? Let's see why they said that.
Was one of the first things we agreed, that we will not get divorced. And there's a way, Pastor K, because when we say those things, sometimes people think, how can you say that you will not get divorced? How can you say that? Pastor K gave me an analogy many years ago that we use with our clients today. And that is that when you're in a room, there are no windows, there are no doors. And both of you are in that room and a fire starts in the room. What would your first response be? Your first response would be to try to put out the fire. But if there are windows and there are doors, first thing you try to do is run. So he said to me, we have to close every window, every door in this marriage. No way out. Okay? In this marriage.
Hey, no way out. How do y'all feel about that so far? Let me see. D says, shout out to D. Shout out to you, D. I always see your comments, by the way. Finding the right balance between protecting yourself and being in relationships without an iota of fear and the slightest paranoia can be hard. That's what we are talking about. Precisely. That's exactly that we're trying to strike here. Shout out to Naomi Asai. Welcome. Watching from Greece. I've never seen that name before. So welcome. Welcome. Ekabo Sorieto. Welcome. Shout out to you. That's for you and anyone that's brand new here. Romari, I'm seeing your name for the first time as well. Welcome, welcome. All right. The ego can be dangerous. Ego, pride with respect to romantic relationships, 100% destructive. You have to keep managing them. Okay, we all have them at some level. Obviously, you want to have a certain healthy level of confidence that can be translated to pride, depending on who you're dealing with, right? But just be aware that it's, you might be coming off as prideful, you might not realize it. It's usually not a situation where you're obviously the arrogant one in the room in every room you get to. No, if it was that easy, everyone would be getting this right? Yeah. T Love. D Love say, Omo, it sounds like bondage. No way out. I'm asking, what do you think so far about that? T Love says, no way out. No be escape room be that. But jokes apart, anybody been to an escape room here before? Escape room are kind of weird. I thought for me, that's why I was leading with divorce as an option, because I never want to feel like I'm in some kind of bondage, right? In fact, that was one of the languages that I used. Like, I don't want to be in a bondage, you know. But those things, though I don't want to be in a bondage or divorce as an option, became one of the resentments that my wife nursed for 8 years. So thank goodness, for 15 years in now. But for 8 straight years, because she was, resentment is stuff that people bury inside too. But it came all up one day, and the product of it is this conversation. Okay, all right. So, if they are healthy individuals, that's good. If they are healthy individuals all around, that's a good way to look at it, right? D says, very true, Mr. Allah. Greece is in Europe. Naomi, Greece the Europe. Is that true? I'm just kidding. Welcome. Yeah. So the key word, one of the most scarier things that the modern men and modern women are scared of is depends. That's going to be a lot of your answers. Depends. Why? Because you need to listen a little bit closer. You need active listening to the specifics of the person you're dealing with. In fact, that is an overall rule. It's a rule. When people say, everyone is different. No, this one is not different for everyone. Active listening is a must for everyone. It's not different for everyone. It's the same thing that me, you, everyone has to do. You have to learn how to actively listen to your partner. Why? Because you're trying to serve them. You're trying to bring value to them. That is a universal principle. Stop saying there's no principles. There are principles. Number one, active listening. After active listening, application. There's nothing in this life that's worthwhile that doesn't have principles. Let's stop saying that to ourselves, because what some people do, maybe not you, what some people do when they hear is that everyone is different, they just throw their hands in the air and they say, well, everyone is different. Let me just go for the exit sign, right? This is why I think they're coming from. What they're trying to say is, let's engage solution first, right? If we're healthy, somebody said that accurately earlier, if we're healthy, and it's not like some life or death issues, right? Like somebody is feeling their life is threatening, either mentally or physically. Yes, mentally too, right? Then let's not subscribe to this run for the hills first thing. See, for you might have understood it clearly with context. Like, yeah, I don't mean that, but your partner may not be internalizing it like that. Your partner may be internalizing as, this one is not committed though. This one is not committed to me the same way I'm committed, because they can't comprehend the idea. Remember, it flipped for us, right? Earlier on, I was the one who knew, but 8 years in, I was now the one who is feeling triggered when somebody said, marriage, no be do or die. I think negative talking points in general, you have to be aware. You're a human being. You're a spirit. If you're not a spirit, the other person is a spirit for sure. The way they are internalizing or processing what you're saying is not always, let me tell you like this, it's most likely not the way you intended. You need to be aware of that. Let's keep listening. Isabel says, no window, no door. For a minute, I couldn't breathe. I know, right? But let's keep listening to where they're coming from. I think I understand them. Well, I think there's also a downside, right? I think it's, I don't know. I just think it's a day-to-day thing, right? People say to me, so does that mean you know everything, guarantee you're going to last forever? I'm not thinking beyond today. I just want to make sure that I'm serving my partner today, and that I feel safe and secure around my partner today. That's it. And then if God blesses us with another day, we wake up tomorrow, we do the same thing over again. right? But no window, no door. It depends on who you're saying that to. You say that to certain types of people, they will find those windows and door and they will leave. And that's one of the problems I think is going on in church. They're demonizing divorce and they're attracting what they fear the most. If you're actively demonizing divorce, yes, most human beings they will, in weird, twisted ways, they will attract what they fear the most. That same window and the doors you're hiding from people is what they're going to look for, because the reality is that there are doors and there are windows. They will find it. So I understand them, but it's a big old but. Let's keep going.
Divorce is not an option. Whatever happens, we stay here and we fight till death.
Whatever happens.
And we agreed.
Hey.
And then many times you wanted to carry your bag and go.
Oh yeah, you don't look for my trouble now. You're a good girl. You're a nice girl. People always ask for a secret of marriage. This is the secret of our marriage. Right here.
That's okay.
Right here.
Well, everybody knows I have bad character, so you cannot say that.
You don't do
All right. So, like I always told you, your friendship, spending more time on building your friendship, spending more time on figuring out how to have 5 to 6 times carryover per week is your best friend. Finding more time to talk about positive things, laugh, giggle, banters. Those are the things you need to be focused on. Words are powerful. Spend less time focusing on negative stuff. Whatever you focus on expands. Okay? That's just the reality. Whatever you focus on expands, negative or positive. You decide you want to spend your time focusing on divorce, it will expand. In weird, twisted ways, you attract what you fear the most. Right? That doesn't mean that if you ever find yourself in a situation that's just detrimental, that's just not healthy for you or your partner, that you don't know how, you will find the windows anyway. So if you're going to find the windows and the doors anyway, why should you now focus on negatives? Why? Because of educational reasons? You might want to get off that pedestal. You're a human being like the rest of us. Okay? You have limited time, you have limited energy. Spend as much as possible of it on positive reaffirmation, manifestation, laughing, smiling, buying tickets to comedy shows, right? Make it a good sport. This thing we take it too deep. It's all too serious. Everyone is too serious. Those are the issues here. I don't care what they said. What they said matters because the people are following them, and that's why we're reacting to it, right? They're influential, right? But ultimately, I'm more attracted to how they're laughing, how they're friends, right? How they seem to be on the same page. What was the secret we talked about yesterday? The secret to happy marriages is unity. It doesn't matter what you subscribe to as long as both of you subscribe to it. Because if you subscribe to the most perfect ideology in the world and there's division, the other person's like, screw you. A house divided against itself. It doesn't matter how perfect what you read in the textbook is. If you're not on the same page, listen, we talked about Kiriwa how many times, right? We talked about that earlier. We're still going to talk about that, by the way. Right? It doesn't really matter as long as both of you are on the same page without ever many times you want to do it. See, for me, after 3 months, the marriage doesn't exist. Okay? But for some people, they might, let's say for some weird reasons, I know it's kind of strange, right? For some weird reason, they're okay with doing it once a year as long as they're on the same page, truthfully. As in, like, it's not somebody holding resentment and the other person think they're on the same page, right? Truthfully, they're on the same page, it will work because there's unity. We overthink, right? So is that, now everything I said is easier said than done. Unity is easier said than done. So it's a moving target. A typical woman might say, I want this today, tomorrow she might feel differently tomorrow. Are you listening actively? Do you understand that unity is a moving target? Do you understand that everything in life has a pattern? Eventually you'll figure out some kind of pattern. Some people will now call you couple goals because they don't realize that work has gone in. Somebody has really demonstrated what it means to be committed because they were tested. There were moments where they could have seen the red exit sign. I think it's green in Canada, right? What is the color in UK, right? And they run for the hills, right? If that's what you're looking for, you will find it. If you're looking for windows and doors, you will find it. If you're saying it's not necessarily that I'm in a bondage, but this is going to be beautiful 10, 20 years from now when we're on that side where it seems like second nature, we figured this out. Just like you understand the building, you've been to that building how many times, and somebody said, you know where that exit sign is? You're like, no, there's so many exit signs, I don't know where they are. But if you're always afraid in that building, you do know where the exit signs are. And before they turn on the drill, you'll be running for the hills. Because that's where your mindset is, right? So a lot of people are regurgitating talking points that's going to hurt their future relationships. Not because they're wrong. I think they're right. But I just think we're
You're right.
think emotions no be our mates, that's all. And you're always dealing with another person, right? There's another human being involved. Your intentions are overrated. Particularly your good intentions are overrated. Ola, you're saying it doesn't matter to have good intentions. I said your good intention is good for you only. If the other person doesn't see it that way, pato. Right? Remember, we're talking about romantic relationships, right? We're not talking about your boss and employee relationship. No, we're not talking about the car salesman and you negotiating about a car. No. Those are tangible stuff. Romantic relationships, no be your mate. Okay? Everything I share with you here is an art more than it's an exact science. Okay? I was joking. All this is good advice. I don't know what we're talking about. I appreciate this discussion. Thank you for reiterating the health is important, just as we take medicine to cure ailments. Whatever happens, that should be clearly defined. Uncle Ola, no, they waste time. Me too, at least 3 to 4 times minimum. Really? Hey, wahala. But me, good to see you, by the way. Let's see. Let me.
It's outside. It's outside. So,
Oh my God.
so that helped us. We don't
Yes.
consider it.
It's not even an option. Like, there's no way out. So we'll just stay and fix it.
Yeah. I think that helps because sometimes when you give that option, and you start, some people constantly threaten their spouses with it. I'll divorce you, I'll leave you, and before you know it, it becomes, their
It's the threat.
existence, and one day it will manifest.
So for us, divorce is not an option. We understand covenant. We understand that we're in this for life.
Yeah.
And the only way out is death. We
Hey.
understand that since we're in it, we might as well make it worth it. So
Chai.
that kind of guides how we enjoy being with each other. We enjoy each other. We enjoy hanging out. Basket is my best friend, so we talk all the time.
See?
We just about everything. We gossip, everything bad. I do it with this man. And every bad thing I know, it's the one that taught me.
Wow, that's not true at all.
But because we know that we're not going anywhere, we decided to make it worth it. So we do a lot of hanging out, spending time together, and talking. We're always talking, always talking.
The war in Ukraine forced my family to flee.
All right. Shout out to Pastor K and for the content. Good stuff. I appreciate it. But I want to move on to the next story here. And I'll be right back.